bed's on fire. Don't touch me, I'm a real live wire. Psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? Better run, 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 run away. Oh.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Terror Obscura, the show where we look at the best and worst horror has to offer. I'm your host, The Fear Fan, and thanks for tuning in. Now, if you've been watching the show over the last few weeks, then you know that I've been reviewing all the Nightmare on Elm Street films. But to keep things interesting, I've been staggering the Elm Street reviews with other episodes, and since last week I wasted an hour and a half of my life on monsters, you know what that means. That's right, this week it's time for A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. After the huge success of the first two films, Freddy Krueger was rapidly becoming a household name. With that kind of success, a third sequel was more or less inevitable. Thankfully, rather than trying to make a quick cash grab by rehashing the same old shite at a lower budget, New Line Cinema decided to knock this one out of the park by not only inviting back both Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp, but also asking Wes Craven back to pen an early draft of the script. Combine all of that with a bigger budget, and you've got one good reason for being excited. Now, fans consider this to be either one of the best or the best sequel in the series. But does it really live up to its reputation? Let's dive in and find out. We begin with a young girl constructing a paper-mache version of the house from the first two films. This is Kristen, our protagonist, and we can tell that she's been having trouble sleeping because of some interesting dietary choices she makes. Ew, coffee grounds and Coke? Everybody knows that shit's better with Pepsi. Anyway, since we've got our protagonist, and because this is a Nightmare on Elm Street after all, I think you know what that means. Deploying shitty parent in 3, 2, 1.
You're crazy! Neighborhood. Hello.
Alright, let's run through the shitty horror parent checklist, shall we? Do you ignore your child's affection?
Don't hi, Mommy. What are you still doing up? It's past 1.
Just thought I'd wait for you.
Well, I'm home. Now you can get to sleep. Come on. Undelay.
Well, now that's a big check. Are you dismissive of your child's possible psychological problems?
Mom, I'm still having those awful dreams.
Elaine, where do you keep the bourbon?
I'll be right down. Honey, I've got a guest.
That's another check. And I think I'll just go ahead and tick off drunk and promiscuous. Anyway, Kristen nods off and finds herself at the house from the first two films. There's a creepy little girl on the porch, so Kristen naturally decides to follow her, proving that she has roughly the same survival instincts as a radish. Seriously, if you're in a horror movie and a creepy little girl ever asks you to do anything, the answer is always no.
Come and play with us, Daddy. Forever and ever and ever.
No thanks! So, Kristen follows the little girl into the house, and we see that the new owners made a few changes, such as central heating, and a bit of extra closet space. Kristen catches up with the little girl in the basement, only to have Freddy show up and give chase. Yeah, it's a lot easier to escape when you aren't jogging in place. Also, nice job on keeping the kid from getting hurt. Ow! You just hit my head, you bitch!
Put me down, you're hurting me.
So, Kristen wakes up and heads to the bathroom to splash a little water on her face. Of course, it turns out that Kristen's still asleep and is attacked by Freddy, who, for some reason, tries to make it look like suicide.
Kristen!
Sorry to be the one to tell you this, Freddy, but I think any chance you had for subtlety went down the drain after what you did to Glenn. The next day, the story moves to the Weston Hills Mental Hospital, where we're introduced to Max, an orderly played by a young Lawrence Fishburne, and Dr. Neil Gordon, a psychiatrist treating a group of kids with recurring nightmares. We also meet Dr. Sims, whose eyebrows alone are scarier than pretty much anything that Freddy Krueger could come up with. And maybe this is just me, but I think she bears a weird resemblance to Dr. McCoy. No, the other one. There we go. Anyway, their conversation is interrupted when they get a call that there's trouble in the wards. When they arrive, they find that Kristen is flipping out.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I want to help you.
Don't worry, it's nothing Freddy related. She just got the bill for her hospital stay. Before Kristen can do any more damage with that scalpel, her new psychologist shows up and calms her down. It's Nancy Thompson, who has survived Freddy's attacks long enough to earn her psychology degree. She reveals to Neil that she's here to help because of her experience with pattern nightmares, and as the two part ways, Neil notices that he's being watched. She's still not as creepy as a hover nun. Those things are scary as shit.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
Anyway, since we've got our main characters established, it's time for us to meet the meat. First up, there's Philip, whose hobbies include puppetry and sleepwalking. Second, we have Kincaid, a surly tough guy who spends most of his time in solitary confinement. Next up, Joey, mute, horny, and entirely useless except as a possible MacGuffin. There are a few others too, but we'll be getting around to them later. Anyway, Kristen finds herself trapped back in the nightmare house that night, and after wandering around for a bit, she stumbles into a room where she is attacked by... Really? She's being attacked by a giant worm with the face of a child molester. Okay, as Freudian as the last movie got, I honestly think that this tops it. So, before Sigmund Freud can rise from his grave to salute whoever came up with this scene, Kristen uses some hitherto unmentioned psychic powers to pull Nancy into the dream world. Nancy, badass veteran Freddy fighter that she is, manages to rescue Kristen and wake both of them up. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did Kristen suddenly gain psychic powers? Turns out she didn't. She's always had them, but just forgot that she could use them. You know, the same way that you or I occasionally forget how to walk, breathe, or chew solid food unassisted. So, at group therapy, we finally meet our last three characters. There's Taryn, a former junkie, Jennifer, who wants to be an actress, and Will, a wheelchair-bound kid with a taste for Dungeons and Dragons. Nerd! After meeting the rest of the kids, Nancy tries to get Dr. Gordon to prescribe Hypnosil, an experimental dream-suppressing drug that Nancy's been using to hide from Freddy. Dr. Gordon is reluctant to give the kids an untested drug, but while they're talking, Philip gets killed in a rather spectacular death scene. This one's a fan favorite, folks, and it isn't hard to see why. Anyway, Freddy leads him up to the roof and then drops him to his death. Anyway, Neil decides to prescribe the drug, but it's going to be at least another day before it shows up. So later that night, Jennifer is sitting in the TV room trying to stay awake. Luckily, Max shows up to send her back to the wards where she'll be safe.
If Sims catches you here after lights out, she's gonna shoot my ass.
I gotta stay on Max.
Jennifer.
Just tonight, please. I can't handle the nightmare. Not after Philip. Not tonight.
Okay. But I never saw you.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Hey, wait a damn second! Didn't one of your kids just jump to his death last night? And by the way, what happened to the rest of the children under your care, Max?
We lost a kid about a month ago to Fairview. I don't know where he got the razors, but he cut off his own eyelids to stay awake.
Gee, let me guess how that one went down. Hey, Max, could I borrow some razors?
If Sims catches you here after lights out, she's gonna shoot my...
Wait, please! I really need to shave!
Okay. But I never saw you.
Okay. Who knows? Maybe this will work out better than we expect.
it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Welcome to prime time, bitch.
Not bad, Freddy, but I would have also accepted "Are you ready for your close-up, bitch?" At Jennifer's funeral, Dr. Gordon runs into creepy staring nun lady again, and she offers him this sage advice.
Only one thing can save the children. The unquiet spirit must be laid to rest. It is an abomination to God and to man.
Still spooky, but still not as creepy as hover nuns. By now, Neil's faith in science is starting to crumble, and after Nancy tells him about her experiences with Kruger, he decides to try things her way. They tell the kids who's after them, and form a plan. Using Kristen's ability to pull people into dreams, the survivors will team up and try to take Freddy down together. To test their plan out, they use hypnosis to put everyone to sleep. At first, nothing seems to happen, but then they discover that they're actually lucid dreaming, and have all the talents that they do in their best dreams. Kincaid is strong, Kristen is agile, Will, well...
In my dreams, I am the wizard master.
ダメだ! あんたたちに部屋は貸さないよ! Nerd!
And as for Taryn...
Hey, check out Taryn!
In my dreams, I'm beautiful. And bad.
Terrible fashion sense and the ability to run around with sharp objects. That leaves Joey, though. What's his ability, you ask? The ability to get his Mac on. Of course, it turns out to be Freddy, whose bizarre obsession with doing weird crap with his tongue continues. He captures Joey and is about ready to do in the rest of the group when Sims walks in and finds out what they've been doing. Since Joey's mind is trapped in the dream world, he winds up stuck in a coma. Anyway, Neil and Nancy get fired, but as Neil tries to leave, he runs into the spooky nun lady one last time.
What was this place? Purgatory. Fashioned by the hands of men. Twisted, lonely souls.
Oh my god, this place used to be the headquarters for chat roulette. Nah, it was just a ward for criminally disturbed patients. Anyway, it turns out that one of the young female staff was locked in there over the weekend and repeatedly raped by the lunatics. By the time she was finally rescued, she was pregnant.
Her child, Freddy, the bastard son of 100 maniacs.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that only one of them is technically the father, but then, hey, what do I know? Long story short, Neil needs to find Freddy's remains and bury them in hallowed ground. Meanwhile, Nancy tries to get Kruger to let Joey go. Bet you can't guess how well that works.
Let go of him, you bastard. Oh my god.
P.S. Could you please bring in some Chinese food? Anyway, Nancy and Neil set off to find the one man who can tell them where Kruger's remains are, Nancy's father. Back in the wards, Kristen is taking Nancy's dismissal with all of the calm and dignity one would expect of her.
You can't take Nancy away from us! You can't! She's over here!
You're a sick girl, Kristen. If you want to get better, you must trust me now.
I love their policy towards patient care at this hospital. I wonder what the other wards look like. So Kristen gets dragged off, screeching like a marmoset, while Nancy and Neil try to talk her father into helping them out. At first, he refuses, so they decide to split their forces. Nancy will head back to try and protect the kids at the asylum, while Neil convinces her dad to go to the gravesite. It turns out that Freddy's body is hidden in an old auto salvage yard, and as they close in on the body, Nancy manages to reunite with the kids. Before it's time for Dreamland, though, she offers them one last bit of advice.
Remember, you have to stay together whatever happens. It's the only way we can beat him.
Alright, let's see how long that lasts for.
Listen, everybody. Joey needs us. I can feel him.
Where is he?
How do we find him, Kristen?
Wow, less than 60 seconds. You guys managed to beat Glenn's record for screwing up simple instructions. Anyway, Kristen wakes up back at the start of the movie, only this time her mother's being nice. Yeah, pretty sure we can all see where this is going.
I said, where's the fucking bourbon?
You should listen to your mother.
Oh, damn it, Kristen, you ruin everything. Every time I bring a man home, you spoil it. You know what your shrink says? You're just trying to get a little attention.
My God, she always has to get the last word in, no matter what. So Kristen, using her newfound ability to flee in terror, manages to escape Freddy only to wind up back in Freddy's dream house, which, come to think of it, totally sounds like the most badass Barbie accessory ever. Anyway, Taryn isn't faring much better and finds herself on the mean streets of Springwood. You know, Springwood's really grown in leaps and bounds since the first movie. In the last film, they got a gay S&M bar downtown, and now they've got a filthy alley full of derelicts and people in punk getup. By the time we get to movie 4, this place is going to look like Escape from New York. Anyway, Freddy attacks Taryn, and after a brief knife fight that unfortunately fails to erupt in a dance number between the sharks and jets, Taryn learns that body glitter and 80s fashion sense are no match for a crippling heroin addiction. Note to self, never ask Freddy Krueger to do another drug PSA. Elsewhere, Will finds himself wandering around in a series of corridors containing dungeons and also possibly dragons. Unfortunately, since they failed to establish any sort of thematic fear for Will, he winds up facing off against a gigantic bladed wheelchair. Fortunately, he remembers his special abilities.
I am the wizard master.
Nerd.
I am the wizard master. In the name of Lorik, Prince of Elves, demon be gone!
Sorry, kid. I don't believe in fairy tales.
Wow, I guess he failed his saving throw. That -2 against razor gloves really sucks. So Kristen reunites with Nancy, and Kincaid, who the writers failed to think up a challenge for, shows up as well. Hoping to sneak up on Freddy, they opt for the stealthy approach.
Yo, Freddy! Where you hiding at, you burnt-faced pussy?
Hey, we should find the others first.
You think you hot shit with the little milk kid, don't you? Well, let me see you come get a piece of me. Kruger, pussy! Good chicken.
Okay, if Roland of Gilead isn't behind that thing, then I'm going to feel very cheated. And if you haven't read the Dark Tower series, go ahead and do it. Stephen King is awesome. Anyway, while the Three Stooges climb down to the boiler room, Neil and Nancy's dad come to Freddy's final resting place.
Talking about?
You're about to attend a funeral. One that's long overdue.
Guys, when Spooky Nun Lady said hallowed ground, I don't think Gus's auto yard is exactly what she had in mind. Anyway, our trio finally reached the boiler room and rescued Joey. They try to take Freddy on, but he's tougher than ever, revealing that he hasn't just been killing kids, but consuming their souls as well. Fortunately, they're spared when Freddy senses that Neil is about to finish giving him a proper burial, and comes back to life as a second-rate Harryhausen reject. Dude, if you could do this all along, then why were you trying to possess Jesse in movie 2? Unfortunately, that question is never answered as Skeletor's retarded nephew finishes off Nancy's dad, tosses a few shovels full of dirt on top of Neil, and then... gives a T-Rex roar and goes back to doing what it does best, stalking and killing a diverse group of teenagers. Just as it looks like everybody's going to be killed, Joey manages to pull a dream power out of his ass and save everybody. To be honest, I liked his first dream power a lot better. Oh yeah. Anyway, since Freddy is now obviously defeated forever, Nancy's dad pops in to wish them luck from the afterlife.
Daddy, is it really you?
Yes, my dear. I guarantee it. Would I lie?
Sure enough, it's Freddy, and although he mortally wounds Nancy, she manages to hold Freddy still long enough for Neil to finish the ceremony and send Krueger back to hell. Unfortunately, he's too late to save Nancy, and at her funeral, Neil discovers that the mysterious nun was actually the ghost of Krueger's mom, thereby wrapping up that expository BS.
You were his mother.
Well, I guess that means everything's fine now, right? Wow, who could have guessed that burying Krueger in the hallowed ground of a scrapyard in a ceremony performed by an atheist using holy water stored in a whiskey bottle wouldn't work? Anyway, that's A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. So, is it as good as people say? Absolutely. The kills are great, the performances are solid, and the special effects are still halfway decent even today. Over the last few films, I've talked about how Freddy Krueger has evolved as a character, and I think that this is the film most people think of when they think of Freddy. He's still scary, but there's more of a sense of humor to him. Although it is a good film, it isn't without its flaws. Sometimes the characters do make idiot decisions, and there are one or two plot elements that seem to come out of left field. That said, I still think that this is a really great film, and that anyone who enjoys Wes Craven, Freddy Krueger, or horror movies in general would benefit from giving it a watch. Earlier, I mentioned that Wes Craven wrote an early draft of the script, and while that is true, massive rewrites mean that there isn't much of the original story left. However, I have heard that the draft he wrote was used in a novelization of the film. While I haven't been able to locate a copy, if anybody knows where I can find one, please let me know because I would love to read it. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Tune in next time as we take a ride in Tobe Hooper's Funhouse. Till then, this is the Fear Fan, signing out.